Hey guys, it's Sarah, and today is BookList Thursday. This is a video series I do with my friend Lindsay over at Lindsay's Library, and every Thursday we bring you a fun list or book topic that we feel like talking about. And this week we're going to talk about authors, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite authors, but these are going to be authors that are not necessarily popular. So these can be authors that are just not mainstream, they're not talked about a ton, but they have a good amount of books that are really good that we have really enjoyed. They're just not authors that are hyped up very much. So we want to give them some love today. My first one is an author that I've been reading for quite a while, actually, and he writes a lot of series. He writes a lot of horror, which has been really good. He writes one of my favorite series of all time, which is the Jack Daniels detective series, and it follows a detective. Her name is Jack Daniels. And she hunts serial killers and murderers and solves murders and all that stuff. But what makes this unique is the way that he writes them. It gives you the heebie-jeebies while you're reading it. He's one of the most graphic writers I've ever read. And you're sitting there and you're reading these books, and just the things he's describing is just, it makes my skin crawl. Ugh. And the things that these killers use to kill are so different. One of the books was about botulism. So he was literally poisoning a buffet and people were eating at the buffet. It made me never want to go to a buffet again. And then there's a couple times where you would be in the serial killer's head as well, and you're seeing the urges, and you're seeing, these killers are describing what they want to do to people. Oh, so good. Very graphic, obviously very adult, but so good. I remember flying through those books. It's actually a series I think I want to reread at some point, because he wrote a whole bunch of books. I think he wrote 7 or 8 books and then took like almost a 10-year break, and then he's writing them again now. So it would be something that I'd want to go back from the beginning and read through again, because I think I read those 8 books over like a 2-week period. I just could not stop reading them. It was just boom, boom, boom. And I really like that every book is named after a drink, which is interesting. And I think into the later books, it starts getting into like shots, and there was like a shot of Jack, I think, and I think his newest one is called Chaser. So it's all like alcohol related. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then her name is Jack Daniels. But yeah, so J.A. Conrath. I've also read some other of his things. He has written some horror books that I really liked. He's done some collaborations with Blake Crouch, which have also been really good. So he's just one that I just have enjoyed everything I've read from it. This next one is an author that I don't hear about a ton, but she's getting a little bit more popular because she's had 2 of her books featured in Owl Crate book boxes, and that's Emily Lloyd Jones. Now, I read her book, The Hearts We Sold, and loved it. It was a big surprise on how much I loved that book, because I had never heard of her. I'd never heard of the book. I got it in an Owl Crate box when I was doing that for a couple of months, and I loved that book. So I knew I wanted to pick up more from her, and I did pre-order The Bone Houses, which is her newest release that was also featured in an Owl Crate book in the past couple of months. So people have been talking about that one, and I've heard great things about it. And she also has another book series, I think, and I think the first book is called Elusive, from what I'm remembering. And I definitely want to pick that up at some point too. So I've only read one of her books, but I think she has the potential to be a favorite of mine. The next one is an adult erotic author. And even though she writes those types of books, which can be pretty, like brainless, whatever, they're just fun to read sometimes. But I really like her writing in general. I think she writes really, really well, even though she writes in that genre, and that's Kara McKenna. Now, Kara McKenna also wrote Badger, which I read last year, and it was fantastic. Super messed up. Don't recommend it for everybody. But she wrote that under C.M. McKenna, so it was kind of like a little bit of a pseudonym type thing for a different type of book that she's written. But I read a few of her other books and really, really just liked them. She is not shy. She writes some brutal stuff and some hard things to read sometimes, but I think they're written really, really well. So obviously I can't like recommend everything, but if you like erotic, she's a good one to look at. This next one I think is another one that's probably a little bit more on the popular side than some of the other ones, but that's Claire McIntosh. And I think the difference with her is that I think people talk about her books, but they don't read them. I see a lot of people talk about them, but not a lot of people read them, or they will buy her books, but they won't read them. So I think it's a little interesting with her, but I have read 2 of her books and I loved both of them. I Let You Go is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. It was fantastic. I loved that book. And then I also read Let Me Lie, which I thought was really good as well. And then I do have her other 2 books, I See You, which I haven't read yet. And then I also have After the End, which is not a thriller book. That one is actually a contemporary book, and I'm really excited to read that one. I do have a copy of that as well. So it's really interesting with her though, because I think she writes really well and she can do a good twist. You never quite know exactly what's going on. And I love that about her books. I just don't see people reading a lot of her books. They'll talk about them, but then they won't read them. And my last one is a woman who writes a vampire series. And it's just my guilty pleasure. It really is. And that's Lindsay Sanz. Now, she writes the Argento Vampire series, and this series is so long. There's more than 25 books. I can't remember what the latest one is. I am quite a few books behind in it, but I have read a lot. And it follows a family of vampires. They live in Canada, and the whole premise behind it is that each vampire in this family are trying to find their life mate, which is the one person that is meant for you. And there's very specific qualifications that this person meets, and it's literally the only person you can be with for very certain reasons, which I won't spoil anything if anyone wants to pick these up, but there's very certain reasons why there's only one person on the planet for you. It can be another vampire. It can be a human, which gets very sticky because you pretty much have to try to convince them to become vampires themselves so you can live your life with them. I love the way she had the vampires come into existence. It was very unique, the way that they kind of came to be. And that's explained like really well in a lot of the books. And they're just a fun time. They are also very smutty. So adult sexual scenes in these books. But there's more to it than that. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of drama. They're just a fun time. They really, really are. And I just love it. I've always loved it. And I always say to myself, I need to get back and read some more Argento books because they're just fun. They're definitely books that I fly through, and they're just, you know, they're not like amazing books. This is such great literature. It's just, they're fun and I love them. And I want to read all of them. Again, I can't remember what number I'm on right now, but I am like 5 or 6 books behind, I think. But there's more than 20 books in this series. Okay, guys, so those are some of the authors that I do not hear talked about on BookTube very often, with the exception of probably Emily Lloyd Jones because of Valkrate and Claire McIntosh. I hear about her a little bit more often, but the other 3, almost not at all. So let me know what you think about this. Let me know what some of your favorite authors are that are not really talked about all that much. Do you have any authors that write series that you love that no one really talks about? I'd love to know that. And make sure you go check out Lindsay's video today too. I want to see who she talks about. And we will see you guys again soon. Hope you have a great day.